Alright, the Lakers couldn't have asked for a better start to this game because they were playing with pace, so they were either getting a run out or flowing right into an action, and they scored 19 in just over 4 minutes. As expected, a lot of it was stemming from Luka because the Hornets had Knipple assigned to him, so he was going at that matchup throughout the night, and when it wasn't Knipple, it was Diabate. The Hornets had Diabate switching onto Luka and Braun, but I wouldn't even say him or Knipple were necessarily playing bad defense because they were active, and a lot of the times, it was just a case of good D, better O. The only time it was bad defense was when Kalkbrenner was on the floor, because the Hornets obviously had him dropping, and that's always an easy coverage for Luka to exploit, so he was able to make the right reads in those screening actions. At one point, the Hornets had to zone up, then they started outright selling at the end of the first, and then in the second, they even started going into a box and one, because the only way to stop him was by getting him off the rock, or hard denying him from getting it, so he didn't get to score that entire quarter. That was the right game plan against him, because the others on the Lakers couldn't score, especially the second unit, so without him, the Lakers lost control of the game early in that quarter, and they went from scoring 19 in just over 4 minutes at the start of the night to scoring just 6 in the first 8 minutes of that quarter. From that stretch onward, they could never get control of the game back because the others just couldn't make plays, and it was no different with that second unit. Braun and Smart were responsible for running the offense during the non-Luka minutes, but whenever Braun got into the post, they couldn't take advantage of it, so they basically couldn't win the Luka minutes or the non-Luka minutes, and at the same time, the Hornets were way better at being in the gaps. Their shell was more consistent, so they were more prepared to help or rotate, especially whenever they were loading up on Braun and Luka, and besides Luka, none of the Lakers really had a rhythm, so a lot of the times, they were having to rely on his scoring in the second half. He was either doing that through off-ball screens or by getting in the post, because they were making a concerted effort to get him more post touches, so he was getting crosses to get him in his spots, and it made sense why. The Hornets weren't going to commit a hard double, because at most, they were just shading his angles, and it made it harder for the Hornets to sell compared to him having the rock up top, so he was able to start scoring again. But even when he did have the rock up top, they weren't as committed to selling, because as long as it was only him, they knew the Lakers wouldn't have enough scoring to keep up with them on the other end, and the only other consistent source of offense the Lakers had was just Braun pushing the rock in transition. In the half court, Braun just wasn't able to produce, because his post touches weren't effective, and neither were his screening actions in the second half, so by the end of the night, the Hornets just ran him out the crib. But their defense was an issue from the start of the night, because they played with no effort or attentiveness at all, and once the Hornets got into a rhythm early, they paid for it throughout. One of the most obvious issues they had was their rock containment, because from top to bottom, not one of them could stay in front of their man, and not one of them were ever making the low rotations at the rim, so whenever one of them did get beat off the dribble, the help was late or not there. Their second line was just as non-existent as their first line, and all the gapping they were doing against the Hornets just wasn't effective, because all that space was basically inviting the Hornets to shoot, so not only was that not helping them stop the drive, but it was also allowing the Hornets to get a clean look from deep. The Hornets are a top 5 3-point shooting team in every category for a reason, so whenever they weren't stepping out, the Hornets were stepping in, and it was only exaggerated because of their horrendous Reds the entire night. I lost track of the amount of times they messed up or was late on a switch, and that was shocking, because the Hornets run a lot of guard-to-guard actions, especially the brushes or ghosts, so they should have at least been somewhat prepared to defend those. That's without even mentioning the Hornets' three-man actions in the double drags, delayed Spains, or even the Spanulises that gave Knipple 2 straight line drives in the first half. And he wasn't the only one benefiting off the Lakers' defensive issues, because so was Bridges, B-Mill, and especially Melo in the second half. In transition, he was always pushing the rock to catch the Lakers' defense not being set. Then in the half court, he was either hunting Laravia or Luka, because he knew he could take both of them off the dribble easily, and if it wasn't one of them, it was Ayton. The Lakers had Ayton dropping early, but then about halfway through the third, their adjustment was to have him switch, because that space was being exploited by Melo too easily, and all that did was just allow Melo and the rest of the Hornets to fry him on the perimeter, so the Lakers really had no coverage to save him. Him, Laravia, and Luka were basically barbecue chicken for Melo to feast on, and when the Lakers tried to start loading up on him, all he had to do was make the right pass, because it was just as easy for the others on the Hornets to score, so Melo basically had his way. Just watch the tape.
That's pretty stuff from Lamelo, and he's having way too much fun right now.